Welcome to week 12. This is the first video for week 12. The stitch that we're going to be covering is Entrelac, which is actually, I think, more of a technique than a stitch, but we'll review that as we get there. In this particular video, we're going to cover the base triangles. For those of you who don't know, Entrelac is knit in short rows, which means we're going to be turning our work frequently. And it can get a little cumbersome, especially on large work, so I do apologize for that. But it makes a really, really neat pattern when we're finished. The fabric just looks very nice. So the way that it works, I've set these up to kind of mimic what it looks like if you are attaching it to something else. So you can pretend that this is the last two rows of the last week that you worked, which was week 11. And the way Entrelac works is you build triangles along the bottom, and there's isosceles triangles where two sides are the same. I think that's right. So you build those across the bottom like this. The next row, you will have a triangle, same an isosceles triangle, but turned on its side, as well as rectangles that move across and a rectangle on the other end. And you can repeat a couple rows in the middle of the pattern, but I don't think you'll need to do that to get the length that you need. So then we come to the end of the project, which the interesting thing is it'll actually bind off itself. So when we get to that tier, they're top triangles, so they are like this, but like for some reason I can't get my thumbs to connect that way. So we have triangles on the bottom for the first tier, which is what we'll cover. And then we have tier 2, which is triangles on the ends and rectangles in the center. That'll be a separate video. And then we'll have the top triangles. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab our yarn, and I am using Sunshine, which is color B. So if you are following along using the same colors, that's what color we're using for this. So color B. And it does say in the notes to turn your work after each row. Oh, I've got some knots in here. There we go. That was not a very clean snip, but it'll work. Okay, so keeping that in mind that we're going to turn after each row, I've got my new color. And for row 1, we're on the right side, gonna knit a stitch. And that's it. That's the entire row. Okay. So now I'm gonna turn. I'm gonna purl that same stitch. Okay, and turn again. I know it doesn't look like much. We'll get there. Okay, so now we're on row 3. I'm going to slip the first stitch, and then I'm going to knit the next one. Okay, and again I'm going to turn, and I'm going to purl. So quickly you're seeing a pattern emerge on the back side. It's just purls. Whoops. And it will be the same all the way through the base triangles. Okay, and so the next one, we slip the first stitch, and we're going to knit 2. Okay, turn, and oops, and purl. Okay, and so as you can see, because each one is a little bit longer, it's starting to get that triangle shape. Each one of these triangles is going to be a total of 10 stitches. So once you get into the rhythm, you're going to realize how to work each of these kind of without thinking about it. The way I like to think about this first triangle, or the base triangles, is you're always going to knit one of the blue stitches before you turn. So the back, you're always purling. And the reason you're slipping that first stitch is because you need to pick those up in the next row to work them. And that just makes them a little easier to grab. That also means you don't need to be worried if they look long. So slip one, and we're going to knit until we've knit a blue, and then we're going to turn. And the swatch that I'm working with right now, this is a 30 stitch swatch. I bring that up because I have been using 24 stitch swatches because this particular pattern for Entrelac is broken into sections of 10 stitches. That wouldn't work, and so I wanted to make sure that I had something that looked accurate. You know, you can do it in sections of 8 or in sections of 9 or 3 or however many you want to do. But I wanted to be sure it was exact when it came to matching the project. So as you can see, especially in the beginning, the flipping back and forth gets a little old, but once you have a few stitches to work, it's not quite as bad as it was. Okay, so you can see there's a triangle starting to form here. It does look a little elongated, and that's okay because once we start pulling these stitches, when we pick them up, they'll actually be pulled this way and it'll straighten that out a little bit. It's almost self-blocking in that way. So slip the first one, keep going. Okay. I'm at 7. These videos are going to be long, guys. And if you guys, if anybody has figured out how to knit backwards, that is a thing, so you don't have to turn your work. So maybe if you have already done Entrelac before, and you would like an additional challenge this time around, maybe that's what you could do so that you don't have to go, and I don't mean purling, it's actually to knit backwards. So you could knit across from left to right. And I don't know enough about left-handed knitting to know if that's the method that's used. Right-handers can just alternate. But yeah, I've seen videos and I've not mastered it. It's, you know, I think everyone gets to the point where just doing it their way is easier than learning something new. And so I try really hard to get out of that trap, but sometimes it does still catch me. So it's one of those things. I'm sure it would be faster if I just put my head down and learned how to do it. Okay, so now I have 8 that are yellow in this particular triangle. Okay, so this is my 9th stitch. I'm gonna turn and purl them all. Okay, so I am on row 19. This is the last row of a triangle in this section. And for row 19, you're going to slip the first one. You're going to knit 9. So as I said, there are 10 stitches in this section. And then you're not going to turn your work this time. Okay, so slip 1, knit 8, knit number 9, and I'm not going to turn my work. Okay, so I've made one triangle. So you're going to repeat those 19 rows across all of your work. So you'll do it 24 times or 100, I'm sorry, I was going to say 180 times, 18 times, depending on which blanket you're making, which size. And what you do when you go back to this one, you've done your one section. It says do not turn, go right back to row 1. You're going to knit 1 and turn. and we're back to row 2, purl 1. Okay, so if you need to put a little stitch marker there so you're not tempted to work back onto this triangle, you can, but after you're a couple rows in, you won't even feel like that's an option anymore, because it will start to take form as well. Okay, so this guy, you just leave him hanging there, and you can work these until you have all your triangles. As you can see, the second one's starting to form there. Okay, so once I finish up this row, we will move to the second tier. I guess I should say this tier. We'll move to the second tier, and I'll let you know how that works. See you soon.